Hello and welcome to this mini episode of Star Revelation. So this comes on the back of a Mercury retrograde. We have got about 5 days to go, and Maria and I have been trying to go live on Instagram since Tuesday, and the energy is not letting us do so. So we're doing a longer video or podcast, however you're listening to it. So welcome, Maria. It's great to see you.
Yeah, surprise podcast this morning, but I guess that's just the Mercury energy, isn't it? You have to be adaptable to whatever she is offering you in the moment. So, in a way, I think this will be really beautiful because we get to have a longer chat, and maybe that's what she wants, eh?
Maybe that's probably why we were frantically pressing buttons on Instagram and not being able to work anything out. She always has a way of getting her own way. So we were going on Instagram to chat about Babalon and all things the pathway of the Scarlet Priestess. So you get us here on a slightly longer format. So Babalon. You hear us talk on the podcast a lot about Babalon, how we work with her, how we're devoted to her, and she has been very much calling us since I think Christmas last year to really talk about her, to honour her, to create some space where we share our teachings around her. So that is what we are going to do. And I'm really excited about it. So Maria, shall we just chat a little bit about Babylon in our lives, and how we came to create this? It's going to be a 4 week, almost mini course, a mini immersion into Babylon, which is almost the start of a greater work, I feel.
Absolutely. I think once you start to dive into Babylon, you realize that her story is the story of the goddess, it's the story of magic itself. So it brings together all elements of, our pathway. And I was thinking a few days ago as I've been preparing for this course, how she came into my life. And I had read the Daughter of Fortitude speech. I'd read a lot about John Dee and Edward Kelly as a teenager. And as we know, dabbled in with Crowley and Dion Fortune, but I never really associated her with Crowley until more recent times. I didn't really realize it was Babalon in the Daughter of Fortitude speech until, yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago when she just started coming to me spontaneously. I was doing a lot of work with Carolyn Elliott's existential kink practices. And I think Carolyn herself now refers to Babylon as the overlighting goddess of existential kink. And I would say that's definitely my experience. I was doing these practices and she came to me through the understanding of the sphere of Bina on the Kabbalistic tree. So that was my kind of reintroduction to her maybe about 5 years ago. And ever since then, we've been really diving into her energy. She's kind of snuck into some of the silver spiral trainings, which I think is maybe where Lexi and a couple of the other students met her. She always sneaks in around Beltane time when we talk about Venus, because she is the Venus of the new Aeon, which is something we're going to talk about really deeply in the course. But I think when she comes to you, she really expands your life. But you have to be willing to go beyond your sense of what is shameful or taboo, would be my experience of Babylon.
I love that. So my immersion into Babylon is all your fault. Absolutely. I remember when we were in the spiral actually, and Ari Amrod's colours, we always have the silver and the blue. And suddenly because our group was quite small, it was a really intense group. brilliant group. And red just started to seep through when we were kind of doing the meditations, and it was just kind of seeping through and seeping through. And I remember we were all there doing our practices, and we read the Daughter of Fortitude speech actually, and part of the choir, the 12th Aether as well. I remember doing this huge practice. And then ever since then, I started being obsessed with wearing red lipstick. And it was like she just seeps in and kind of just pushes you and nudges you. And then I read Peter Gray's The Red Goddess, which is just phenomenal
Mm.
book, pulling together all the strands. And then you suddenly realize that she is working with you on a daily basis, and she always has been as well. And like you, she's very much the kind of she is the grail goddess of the new Aeon as well. And I remember very much doing some work as well with Carolyn Elliott, joining her Red Magic course to learn more about Babalon and learning the daily practices, and just seeing how she just comes into every aspect of your life essentially. As I'm kind of looking as we're recording, I've got my Ari Anrod altar, got a beautiful picture by Cheryl Yambach Rose of the Aquarian Chalice, the blue, beautiful blue picture. And then I've got my Babylon section as well, where I keep my lipstick and my red wine and my red flowers. And yeah, she just seeps through, and she does push you to the edge. What is forbidden, what is taboo. Sometimes that's around your sexuality, but for me, it's been what's taboo within the religious upbringing that I've brought as well. She's really pushed me to the edge of, what do you believe? What is bad? What is evil? What is good? Is there any differentiation? So that's how I've really seen her work. And she's really pushed me down that magical pathway, really questioning what I've been taught and how I can really integrate the daimonic, I can't get words out this morning, influences within our life, and what, summoning energies that perhaps I would not have been uncomfortable. I would have been really uncomfortable with maybe even a year ago. So that's how she's really crept into my life, particularly through magic.
She is the goddess of magic, isn't she? If we trace her back down through time, we see her often referred to as the goddess of Heka, which is the ancient Egyptian word for magic, which is where we find her origins, really. And then she comes through all of these great magicians throughout the ages. But due to the nature of the times that people were living in, I think the Scarlet women that were their counterparts were, often forgotten, or their stories not so well recorded. All of the fame kind of goes to Jack Parsons and the infamous Mr. Crowley. And I think her association with Crowley is something that is really symbolic of her energy in general. And we were having a little chat about this the other day, because I was thinking to myself, whenever you hear about Babalon, she is associated with Crowley through the Book of the Law and the cry of the 15th Aether. And because Crowley has so many misconceptions printed upon him, you actually have to go through that taboo of learning to understand Crowley before you can get to Babalon. And I think that's quite purposeful in some ways, because she will push you beyond the limits of your understanding, because she does not differentiate between angels and diamonds. She receives all things, as the goddess does. She delights in all things, which is the deep mystery that we try and give voice to and transmit, I guess, and live.
And what I really, really kind of pick up on that as well, the forgotten aspects. I can't get my teeth in this morning. The forgotten women, who were the Scarlet women, who were the priestesses, who enabled Dee, Kelly, Crowley, Parsons to actually do their work. Their story is very much forgotten. Who remembers, Rose? Who remembers Layla Waddell? Marjorie Cameron, maybe, but actually she's remembered as an artist herself. No one remembers John Dee's wife, who was subject to a bit of wife swapping. because of the work that they were doing with Babylon. What is her story? And I guess maybe part of our work at some point will be to do a little bit of trans channeling of those women. I think that would be utterly amazing. But she does push you to the edge, and you're right, you have to really understand Crowley's works to understand Babylon, because so much is hidden within it, and he is such a divisive character. I mean, we're not going to sit here in praise of him. He was an absolute I'm not going to swear. But you have to you have to read what he's saying about it in order to understand. You have to read it in the fact that it was written in a time where sex magic could not be published. Therefore, it was couched in other terms and other ways of basically describing Crowley having a wank. You've got to actually just work through that and understand it, and ask people who have read the books to explain it to you as well. You know, what's good, what's bad, what's evil. It all comes back to again, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's why one of her titles, we hear in Revelation is Mother of Abominations, because she teaches you to love what we are taught is abominable. She receives all things into her chalice and therefore becomes one with them. So it's really the ultimate non-dualistic perspective of life. And I think my personal pathway with Babylon is an existential kink, is really learning how to lean into discomfort, really learning how to lean into, what I would normally resist. And that can be, an unpleasant life experience or situation. That can be a spiritual edge that you don't want to meet. And I would say that Babylon is something very much beyond the new age. She always says to me, I'm a goddess for the new Aeon, not the new age. Because she is not a safe space. It's not light and gentle work to be devoted to her. I think, as with any goddess, but most particularly this archetype, and again, she's become very much associated with Tantra and things like that, but she is so far beyond that. That's only the beginning.
Yeah. I think that is a really important differentiation as well, that this is new Aeon and not new age. This isn't a safe space. This is a bold space. It's a brave space. It's a space and teaching which will take you to the edge. It's not going to be warm and sitting in a circle and drinking cacao and, just, chewing the fat. This is really going to take you to a place of discomfort. And for me, my path with Babylon, as I said, is getting comfortable in the rejection of the Christianity in which I have originally been brought up with. And, it still permeates through my life today. I mean, the biggest edge I've got to walk at the moment is, and she's not listening, so I can say this, my mum is training as a lay minister in the Church of England. And I'm here summoning diamonds and working with Babylon. So that's a really interesting edge that I'm really being pushed to, but to also understand the kind of how Babylon was portrayed in the Bible and how we can reclaim that as well. So come and join us if you want a bold space, if you want to be pushed to your edge, if you're ready to go beyond the light, the fluffy, ready to go beyond the Magdalene energy, which permeates throughout the whole of the new age, this all loving, all beautiful, kind of deeply feminine goddess. Mm-mm. This is the other side. This is the edgy, dark, slightly gothy, red lipstick wearing, leather skirt wearing, thigh boots, kind of walking down with a corset on kind of energy. This is really powerful stuff. This is the it's for me, it's not the reinterpretation. It is the reinterpretation of goddess in her full form. You know, it is the holy whore, the mother of abominations. This is the goddess of the new Aeon. So if you're looking for the light, the fluffy, the supportive, may I recommend Babylon is not for you.
Yeah, and I think it's good to be really clear on that in this kind of social media glamorized reality that we live in, isn't it? Because it's so easy to get drawn into things. And we were talking about this a little bit last night in Astrological Magic. We were talking about Venus and magnetism and how it's so, for me, Babylon is a erotic magnetic current. So she does bring things to you. But it's so important to take responsibility for what you're magnetizing. So we like to be really clear about what is for who. And for me, I think Babylon is really an extension of our work with the vast cosmic mother as well, who we call Ariane Rod or Newt. She is her earthly incarnation. So she is the spirit within all of us that is awakening as we transition into this new Aquarian Aeon. You know, she really is that symbol of the turning of the wheel from this Piscean Mary energy into this Babylonic frequency of liberation, which I was pondering the other day. A lot of people are scared of being free. I was thinking about this because I was thinking very much about Neptune and Aries. I was thinking about this kind of exodus from New Age back to religion because I've been seeing it in people I know. I've been seeing it on social media. And I was thinking it's because both of these things are very similar. They're both cages, they're both places where you can seek a savior to do the work, to give you something outside of yourself. But that is not the Aquarian energy. That is Pisces. Aquarius is this Babylonic force of where do you need to liberate yourself from the conventions and traditions of society, from the boxes and limitations you put on yourself. And that can be a scary place to be, right?
It's almost as you've got this beautiful gilded bird cage, and I'm sure there's an old song my granddad used to sing, she's only a bird in a gilded cage. But this is the cage. We could open the door for you, but whether you walk out and truly choose freedom is absolutely down to you. And I think one, people dread freedom and fear it, you know, false evidence appearing real, but they fear being free. But also, the other undercurrent for me that I'm really noticing is that the patriarchal society, which is underpinned by the three Abrahamic religions, get very twitchy when women step into this Babylonic frequency, when they step into the energy of being free, of speaking their own mind, of standing up. You know, imagine if we all did that as women, how would society change? So there is this backlash energy of, you know, step into this frequency. People want to pull you back. You know, they want you to come back to the gilded cage of religion, the gilded and slightly, you know, more ornate cage of new age religion. I was going to say new earth religion, new age kind of new earthy ascension, kind of everything's going to be great, but here's your little matrix. So you're step actively out of the matrix. And that's the question. Are you ready to step out and not just stepping out in a, oh, I'll just put my foot out of the cage. It's no, you've really got to be bold and walk through. So that for many is the edge that they still can't come to terms with. So if you're ready, to step out, to find true freedom, to break free of all this conditioning and societal conditioning, religious conditioning, then this is the pathway that inevitably you will follow.
And I think it's a pathway that is a little bit scary because it's not one that we've walked before. I think even within goddess community and priestess practice, we haven't really walked this pathway of freedom. And here we have another mercurial interruption. I don't know whether anyone can hear the knocking on the door. I'm still recording. What happened?
Anyway, I shall.
Starving children.
Well, I know. I mean, he's a big lad though, isn't he? He's a growing lad, so he needs to be fed. But this is real life. She brings us these interruptions, doesn't she? She's got to find. It's not perfection when we record these podcasts. It's just us talking. Anyway, where were we? Edge walking, goddess community. I really liked that. This is definitely not something that's being done in the goddess community wider. I'm going to say this is very edgewalky, trailblazy. This is definitely setting a new pathway, which some are really going to love and some aren't.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing, isn't it, of not everything is for everybody.
Exactly.
I think me and you are very similar with our, birth charts and energies that will kind of call us to the edges of things. There is a sense of, needing to have that. It's almost like a desire to walk those forgotten pathways, isn't it? It's that desire to push yourself. And so I think that is what Babalon is for, it's not for people that are, just needing a safe space to heal their trauma, which is, the first step on the pathway, right? We all go through that. This is more for people that are ready to break free, that are looking for a deeper perspective.
Yeah. And it is the spiritual journey is different, it's different for us all, but very similar. We all have very similar steps, don't we? But this is almost taking it further out than many would be prepared to walk as well. And yes, I mean, we are literally almost twins, aren't we? I mean, we were born 300 miles apart, 48 hours, and it's how it always amazes me how she's brought us together at a particular time and gone like, right, okay, it's the power of two, isn't it? Off you go. There's two of you now. You found each other. Let's go. Let's take these to the edges. And some of the conversations you and I have about the magic that we're practicing, or the rabbit holes that we've gone down to kind of integrate diamonds, is really, really fascinating. But yeah, this is really pushing the edges and the boundaries. And yeah, it's not so it's energetically safe, but it's not a safe space where you are going to be wrapped up and nurtured and held. It's you've got to be bold, you've got to be brave, you've got to be ready to take some radical self responsibility. You've got to want to be free, and you've got to want to experience the edge, because once you have tasted the edge, it's like an adrenaline hit. You can never walk back from it. And I saw this myself, of kind of pushing the edges and pushing, myself to be better and better and better, because that was my conditioning at the time, of always going as far as I possibly could do in my learning, in my running, or whatever, just to find that edge. And now we find the edge in this vast cosmic universe of infinite possibilities. And it's the pathway of almost, we're walking into the void. But the void is lit ahead of us if we are prepared to walk. So, Are you jumping or are you not jumping with us?
Absolutely. And in magical tradition, Babylon is often associated with crossing the abyss.
Yes.
And, we are instructed to give all of ourselves over to her chalice, to not hold back one drop. And I think that's the thing with Babylon. It is this willingness to have the small self, the false self, the safe self totally annihilated. That was my experience of her anyway. She brought people, she brought situations where I just had to learn how to free myself of old conditioning, but also where I really got this opportunity to practice leaning into these really uncomfortable places. And I think where I'm at the moment is probably because Neptune is conjunct my sun as well, is really going into that space of a little bit more surrender and not taking things so seriously. Which is, yeah, hilarious with my Capricorn moon, absolutely hilarious. But
Capricorn moon.
yeah, but it's like, can you find the humor in this in a way? That's a lot what she's been saying to me recently, and it's, I think, this human element we have of trying to control things to keep things safe is the kind of opposite of Babylon. So that's where I'm at the moment in this very kind of Neptunian thing of, okay, well, we just fully, not, this light and fluffy, oh, everything's going to be okay, surrender, but it's like, I fully surrender to this experience, even though it's uncomfortable, even though I don't really want this. But I fully surrender to life. I give up everything. I receive everything. This kind of thing. It's a really unpleasant place for somebody with Capricorn and Scorpio energy.
Yeah.
So that's an edge for me, right? Because I'm a grumpy
Yeah.
toad usually.
Hey, I've got Saturn in the 10th, so I love structure. I mean, you and I know when we work together, I've got the spreadsheets, I've got the list, I've got the plan. Maria, this is what I need you to do by then. This is how we run our little, it's not a little business anymore. This is a massively growing business, actually. But I love structure. And you were making me giggle because, as you and I know, that when we did astrological magic and everybody does lots of things in our course, but we often take on a magical motto, and mine is wisdom is surrendered to the goddess. And I haven't really been surrendering. So, yes, maybe I need to be a little bit lighter in life as well. So, it is, we have to find the humour in the situation, where we are geopolitically, because I always bring things back to this. What a bit of a show, aren't we? The excrement show. So actually, we've got to find the humour in this, okay? We've got to find the humour in all this going on. And actually, do you know what? Just surrender to it all because actually, it's going to be the learning that we need. I'm not going to say everything's going to be wonderful and perfect and we'll just hold the high vibration. It's just like, all right, I'm in this situation. I'm going to laugh about it. I'm going to find the lessons in it. And I'm just going to carry on with my life in freedom, not being subsumed back by the matrix. So, our homework for this weekend is to have some fun then and find some humour.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? She is the goddess of the new Aeon. So she is the goddess of that transformation. So she is, going through this process with us. This is a new incarnation of the Great Mother. She's been in those robes of Mary for such a long time. And that just cannot, um, it doesn't work in harmony with the Aquarian frequency because actually Aquarius is all about authenticity. And quite often when we're in that space of um, the new age and trying to ascend, we're not always very authentic, or that was at least my experience when I was walking that pathway. You're still very busy trying to be good, aren't you? Trying not to think any wrong thoughts or, you know,
Very good. Very, very, very good. And I was actually channeling this morning as part of my morning practice, and it was very much about authenticity and how people expect walking the spiritual pathway, they will become stars. They will, have ideas that they will dress up as spiritual downloads. And actually, that is going to be the fall because people will see through the inauthentic expression of what is going on. So, this is about being truly authentic and not expecting superstardom. This is about soul growth. It isn't about social media superstar growth. This is deeply personal work, but deeply authentic work as well.
Absolutely. I think when you contemplate the abyss, when you contemplate Babylonic energy, none of that means anything. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. When you cross over, um, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, but it does matter how much in integrity you were in your life, trying to avoid what the Egyptians called the second death. But that's a story for another day. But this is the thing, isn't it? Even our spirituality in this time is so tied to social media and performance.
Yeah.
And, really that means nothing, you know. Doesn't matter how much money you make a month or, where you're flying out to or what new handbag you've got.
You can't take it with you.
That's what my granddad always used to say.
Do you think we should give them a little taste of what we are going to be covering as well? Because we've both been furiously researching and channeling all this information. So, um, we start off. I think you're starting off teaching, aren't you, on the pathway of Scarlet Priestess, if I've got remembering what we're doing right.
So I think we've got it structured. So we've got our first session is Who is Babylon? So I will be talking about Babylon through the ages. I will be explaining her essence through her symbology. And we will be giving you a invocation and practice to start to bring her energy into your life. And then I think we've got two kind of magical history lessons and obviously some more magical practices thrown in.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing the magical history, the history of magic lessons. So this is going to take you to your edge because in the first lesson we are going to look at Babylon in Revelation. So, you may have to get your Bible out to get really comfortable with being in the discomfort of this written text by John of Patmos. We look at maybe was he on mushrooms at the same time, but we really look at how he was so angry with goddess worship that it is all couched into Revelation. So I personally think that is a really big kind of initiation for people because you have to get comfortable with a religious text and its explanations. And then the week after, we are going to be looking at the boys of Babylon. This is my favorite lesson to write. It really, really was. We're going to be looking at John Dee, his work with Edward Kelly, the wife swapping. We're obviously going to have to touch on Mr. Crowley and going through, how he worked with Babylon, but also the missing elements, how he didn't quite achieve what he thought he was going to achieve. You can see him getting a little bit cross in the corner. And then we're going to be looking at the very glamorous Jack Parsons. His work with Ron L. Hubbard, yes, the dude from Scientology, and Marjorie Cameron. So there's kind of two history lessons, but within that, there's going to be rituals and invocations and integration work as well. And then we finish with the fourth week. This is 4 weeks with Maria kind of taking over and talking you through the pathway of the Scarlet Priestess. That's right, isn't it?
It is, and that's going to be a really deep lesson on how to embody her energy as we go through the Aeons, and why it's so important for us as women to pick up and embrace this thread. That lesson is still in process. So I have a feeling she has something really important to say there, which she won't tell me until after the Mercury retrograde. So that one is still in process. But all of these sessions will also come with, deep magical practices to invoke her essence, because that's really what we want, is for you to become, well, we're finishing up Jack's work, aren't we? We want everyone to become the living embodiments of Babalon, the living embodiments of the goddess, of the new Aeon.
And you're right, it's very much finishing off Jack's work, but then also taking it into the new Aeon. It's kind of almost like if you've got a piece of stitching, we're kind of tidying up the edges and then we're really going forward. I have read Maria's essay, she's read mine. I personally think this is probably the most powerful body of work that we have ever brought through. Really is the start of something. So we would really love you to join us if you want to come to the edge, if you want to really truly meet and embody the goddess as Babalon on the pathway of the Scarlet Priestess. I have a confession. I got the price wrong, which means it's a ridiculous price. It's
on the 99 carat.
Progress. So 4 weeks of our best ever teaching for £99, which should have been a lot more, but I advertised it at the wrong price. So first time we teach this, we're going to put it at that price. So, and the learning, of course, is endless because you are starting that development process. So it's like, the MasterCard advert, isn't it? You get us for £99, but everything we teach you is going to be priceless. So yeah, really, yeah, come and join us. Come and join us. Yeah, anything you want to add, Maria?
Just echoing your sentiment. I think this is such a powerful offering at such a auspicious astrological time. You'll come to see that Babalon is very much associated with Leo, the lion, the pathway of Teth. And we are offering you this during, a Jupiter Sol eclipse season in Leo. So if you really want to ride the beast, join us.
So everything will be in the show notes underneath. And we will be back with a proper full-blown podcast very shortly. Maria, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. And to everybody else, lots of love, and we will see you. Take care.